there, everybody. Today we're going to go hard and deep on Under a Glass Moon, the sixth song off of Dream Theater's Images and Words album. We got a lot of music to get to, so I'm going to shut the hell up right now. Don't you dare go anywhere. So the very beginning starts off with one single guitar part, and later blossoms into a four-part guitar harmony extravaganza. So the intro is based on octaves running through three separate chords. So the chord progression starts with F sharp major, E major, and D major respectively. Now, we don't really play this progression by playing chords. We're implying that the chord progression is behind it based upon the notes that we're deciding to play. So at the beginning, that C sharp to F sharp is just a 5 to 1. That indicates we're in F sharp, okay? Now there's no quality to the chord yet, but here we're going straight to G sharp to E. That indicates that we're hitting an E major chord, and we're outlining an E chord. Next, we go down to B, which is still part of the E chord, and then we straight up hit a D power chord at the second and third fret of the G and B string. And then for the resolution, we just come down, sus4 to the major third, coming back to the F sharp major. So this can be seen as an F sharp minor chord progression, but with an F sharp major at the beginning every time. The second half of this guitar part begins just like the first half, with the C sharp to the F sharp, 5 to 1, G sharp to E, the 3 and a 1 of the E chord, and then 5 of the E chord to the D again, but this time we go to F sharp and G in octaves on the bottom. That's a 1 to a flat 2 back to a 1. And don't forget about the whammy bar play that's happening. So here, you want to use vibrato on the whammy bar every time you're on a static note. Even on the chord. And watch, the first half, I forgot to go over this before, you want to dive all the way down when you hit that first A sharp. Now that we're through with the intro, let's get on to the real intro. This part of the introduction uses 4 separate guitar harmony parts to kind of tie everything together. Now the first harmony part's not going to take too long for me to go through because there's only one very subtle difference between this part and the one I just went over before. Does the same thing, C sharp, F sharp, G sharp, E, except here you replace the D chord, power chord, with an octave, and then you do this, just hang on the A sharp. And then it repeats twice as the other guitars are layered on top of it. Here's harmony number 2. We start on the F sharp this time. We're still playing octaves. But this time, we're sliding all the way up to C sharp. So it's like an inversion of the first part that we did. Instead of C sharp to F sharp, it's F sharp to C sharp. 1 to 5. After hitting the C sharp, we're going to slide up to D sharp, down to B. So this indicates a potential E major 7 chord as being the true function. It also sets up a Dorian mode, which we're going to see later on in the song as well. So this is a F sharp Dorian type of thing. And then we go like this, down to the E, so still part of the E chord, to the 5th of the D chord, which is the 12th fret of the A string. And then, so after that second octave part, we add a third harmony. That's just a single note line that starts on the G string and then makes its way up to the high E string. So we start off on the F sharp, on the 11th fret of the G, which is the root. We go to major third, perfect fourth, then the third of the E chord, just like we did before. Now here we're going to go to the F sharp, which is now the third of the D chord. And then we have this little drop down. Okay, so in total. Immediately following that part, we move up to the high E string, to the root note. Okay, so F sharp up top, and you basically do a very similar thing, just up the octave and on the high E string. So F sharp, up to the major third, same deal, down to the E. Now this time, instead of coming back up to the F sharp, we stay on that C sharp 9th fret the entire time, which leads up to the resolution. Fourth harmony. So we start off at the 9th fret of the high E string, C sharp, going 5 to 1, just like we did at the beginning. Now this mirrors the beginning octave part, just using a single note melody to get through the notes, resolving to the major third. When we come back, we actually start on a G sharp. So I found this very interesting when I was listening to the isolated tracks, and I was hearing a dissonance. And it's actually in there. It's the G sharp working against the F sharp. So if you play both of those notes together, it sounds like this. And it creates a major second, which is kind of cool. It's almost like you're creating an add 9 chord, but you want to crunch that note in the middle there to give it that little added oomph, a little added whatever X factor that is. So getting back to the part, we go from the G sharp up to the C sharp. So this is kind of mirroring the other octave section, so the second octave harmony that comes out. So after that we go to the D sharp, once again indicating that sort of E major 7, and then we come to E, hop up to the A, which is the 5th of the D chord, and then hang on the F for the resolution at the end. So I know what you're thinking. How on earth can you come up with 4 different parts to play at the same time and make it all sound good? Well, I'll give you the short answer. Basically what's happening here is everything is consonant. All of the notes interact with one another as they're moving through the chord progression. So this is a very chord conscious harmony part. All 4 parts are following that as well. So compositionally speaking, each part is carrying the weight of the chord. And basically it's just building as it moves along. So we're starting with 5th root on the first harmony, but the second harmony is picking up root 5th. Okay, so it's setting up a whole new string of motion. And then the middle harmony comes in root 3rd, so you're getting the 3rd of the chord. That's why it sounds so massive. You have entire chords being built in 3-part harmony, essentially. Even though there's 4 parts, it's really a 3-part type of harmony that it's building, some notes being doubled to make it even thicker in the process. It just climaxes at this orchestration of beautifully layered guitars, from the lower mid register to the highest of the high register that you can get on the high E string here. So let's hear how all 4 of those harmonies sound stacked on top of each other. Pretty cool, huh? So now we move away from the layered harmonies from the previous section, and we get to have some fun with John Myung and play our first riff of the song. Now this I'm going to call the main riff, as it repeats itself as the song moves along, courtesy of Dream Theater, who You can't get those guys to repeat sections very often. So let's see what's going on technically speaking during that riff. We start off with this sort of 1 to flat 2, going between F sharp and G. With that little riff coming out of that single note, F sharp, G, F sharp, E, right? And then we do that again. We play this little riff, but really fast, right? 1 E and a 2 E, or wherever the hell it lands. But it's the 5th fret to the 3rd fret, so it's a flat 3, flat 2, 1, and then flat 7. We continue on. Do this one again with the, and then we hit this. So for that fast lick, you have to make sure that you're alternate picking the entire thing. Right? And then at the end, you get to palm mute the open E strings. And then open up on the G power chord. So let me play that slow for you. Okay, so that ends the lower portion of the program. So let's get into the second half of the riff that happens in the intro. So it basically follows the same 1 flat 2 sort of scenario, but this time we're getting a little more demented with it, as we're now dealing with big tritone shapes, okay? So first shape we're holding after we hit this G, you hit right into a double on F sharp, C sharp, F sharp, C sharp. So it's a double tritone octave. And then we have these little palm mutes in the middle, okay? And we go from the flat 2, and then as soon as we're done with this, we slide all the way up to the 15th fret. So this is on C, and we're going C, F sharp, C, F sharp. And we're doing a sweep, kind of a funny, goofy little, kind of Mario Brothers type of thing. And then we drop down a half step for that rhythm, go back down to the F sharp. Now here, instead of doing the big shape that we did before with the G, we're going to do a fully diminished 7th chord. Right? And the cool thing about that is it keeps the same motion of the bass note, but this part moves down. So it's as if you're playing an E tritone, going back to an F sharp, but you're playing this. So that's kind of cool right there, a little variation. And then once again we do that goofy little sweep thingy. Now here, we don't hit a true tritone. We hit almost the top of an A13 chord. You're hitting the notes G, C sharp, and F sharp. Now usually it's the root, tritone, and then the octave, right? That's not happening here. It's root, tritone, major 7. So very interesting choice on their part. So the outcome of this riff hinges on how many times we hit the F sharp in between the E's that pass by or neighbor that tone. So we're starting on the F sharp, we're hitting 2 quarter notes, and then we're going E, like we always do in between the F sharps. Now we're going to count these F sharps. We go 2, 3, 3, 3, 2, and then to the end. So 2, 3, 3, 3, 2. Alright, and then we have that little E, the double E at the end with the palm mutes, just to spice it up a little bit. So that goes on to repeat twice, and then we hit into the pre-chorus section of the song. So for the pre-chorus, we break into a 4/4 eighth note rhythm with a palm muting pattern with some open accent notes. Now this riff is based upon a much simpler version of the introduction where we were dealing with F sharp major, E major, and D major respectively. Okay, so that's the 1 chord, the flat 7th chord, and the flat 6th chord. Okay, so I'm starting to think that this is a little more minimalist than we're letting on here. I remember I said that about Pull Me Under as well. This might be a similar situation. Make as much out of one thing as you possibly can. So not really too much to say about that, just regular old A string bar chords, moving along, making sure you play all 4 notes to get the root, 5th, root, and the 3rd action kind of going on there. Not too much to say about the rhythm either, just keep it consistent, and when you hit that B chord, keep it tight. Keep it tight. The chorus section of Under a Glass Moon follows a very peculiar rhythm. Now, even though the entire section is technically in 4/4, the way that the beats are outlined make it feel like it's in a different time signature, especially during the first half of the phrase. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'll play the whole section for you. Before we tackle the rhythm, let's take a look at harmonically what's happening here. So this is sort of a fancier version, and this is something Dream Theater likes to do a lot, is they like to take a somewhat simple chord progression and then just mangle it to all hell till it's way more complex than it should be. Taking a look at the very first part, we have this C sharp minor type of idea. So we've basically changed keys. We've modulated into C sharp minor, so that's the 1 chord. And you're basically just taking the C sharp power chord and sort of crazy training it in a way. What I mean by crazy train is you take that root note, right? You see that? And you're using the crazy train notes to alter it in that manner. So you're taking the regular C sharp power chord and you're going like this. Going to the 4th to the 5th, the flat 6, hammering the 5th back to the 4th, then to the next chord, which is an A add 9. And you hold that out for 2.5 beats, and then you go. So this is what I mean by weird accents on different downbeats. Now, on the tab, I wrote this out as a measure of 6/4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then a measure of 3, 2, 3, and another measure of 3 for the F sharp minor chord. So we're going from the C sharp minor, which is the 1, to the A, which is the flat 6, to the F sharp minor, which is the 4 chord, the minor 4 chord. Alright? And then after we come out of that, we go. So that's sort of like a mangled up E minor type of thing. You're messing around with the flat 6 of E minor to the natural 6 to the flat 7 and the flat 3rd as well, but you could see it also as being over a G chord, which actually might make more sense because it's a flat 2 of the F sharp chord that we originally had. Okay, so we have this C going to C sharp, going down to G, up to D, so it's like a power chord. You're playing around with the G chord a little bit, and then so we have something odd going on here because we're palm muting on the E, and then we're going to that little shape, which is an F sharp, a C, and an F all played at the same time. Now, I'm seeing this as the top of a D7 sharp 9 chord, right? But without the D in it. So you have the F sharp, which is the major 3rd, the C, which is the flat 7, And then this note, which I'm going to call E sharp now. I know I labeled it F before. We're calling it E sharp. We're going to be theoretically correct. So those are the three notes that we play on top of really nothing, you know. But if we think about it, you have the E going on the bottom. So if you play this, that's just insane, because that's an E with a ninth, a flat 6, and a flat 9. I don't think that's what they're going for. I think this is by itself. Okay, enough theorizing about that. Let's take a look at the second half. So we have C sharp minor once again, but this time we're going more of a Bark at the Moon type of idea. So we're doing a lot of Ozzy-based guitaring here. So 16th note, palm muting, and you're still dealing with that that power chord 4th and flat 6 type of thing. So, all right. So it actually harkens back to the introduction. Remember when we did this? It's the same sort of deal, because you have that C sharp minor chord that's implied, and then the flat 2 with the D major. So, and all of those notes work on top of a D as well. On top of the C sharp, it looks like this. It's a G sharp, which is the 5, the F sharp, which is the 4, and the flat 6, which is an A. On top of a D, it looks like this. It's the sharp 4, the G sharp becomes the sharp 4, the F sharp becomes the major 3rd, and the A becomes the perfect 5th of the D chord. So all of those notes are common to both chords, but change the functionality depending on what your bass note is. The next chord goes like this. So you're palm muting on an E, so your bass note is moving up a minor 3rd, but the top chord that you're playing is actually an A chord. So we're continuing the chord progression, okay? It's another way of playing an A chord. It's an A power chord. And then here we have more Bark at the Moon type of stuff with the F sharp power chord shape now at the 9th fret and the 11th fret. Now here we're just going 5th, 4th, and we're still on the 4 chord, right? The only difference here now with the second half is now we're hitting the B chord at the end, which is a B sus2, and then we hit this. We hit a G and an F add 9 coming out of that. Now, in relation to the original key, this really has no bearing. So if we substitute an E in place of the C sharp minor, which is the 1 chord, and we sort of think as E as the 1, this makes a lot more sense, because then you're doing a Phrygian type of thing with the G with a flat 3rd and then a flat 2 on the F. But instead of having a flat 2 on the G, just like we did with the F sharp, now we have a flat 2 on the F, which a flat 2 is incredibly effective when you're trying to draw some kind of pull, right? When you're trying to pull people in a certain direction. So that section right there we're going to go over. I'll play that slow. So in the song, the rhythm is very much in line with sextuplets. 6 notes for each of those chromatic hellstorms. So we're going to go like this. We're basically going to hit, that sort of like implies a D. So you're going D, up 2 half steps and back down, and then hitting the open E string. And that gives you 6 notes. Then you do the same thing 2 frets down from there. And that's on C. Same thing 2 frets down. On B flat. And then, so this is a resolution from B flat to G, just to get down to the F sharp once again for the reintro. So this reintro has some variations going on here, so I'm going to show you what those are. This is the same. This is different. Different. All different than this. covering that first variation. So we hit some a variation on the rhythm at the beginning with the snare drum, and then we go down to E flat, C, B. Now those three chords don't necessarily have a functional bearing on what's going on, and I'm talking theory-wise. However, much like in the spirit of Metallica or Megadeth or any of those classic 80s metal bands, if you play disjointed intervals with power chords, you can pretty much make anything sound good. And if it sounds kind of evil, that's a plus. So that's the flat 7 chord, that's a flat 5, and that's a 4th if we're treating everything as F sharp minor. That is right in line with the blues. So I guess theoretically we're okay with this. It's not all that disjointed. The second rhythmic variation happens after that, and we go. So you're hitting the F sharp one extra time, going to the G, then doing the same sort of 1 to flat 2 motion, and then you hit the E 3 times in that syncopated type of hoppy thing. Then we go like this, a normal one, and we have this long-winded type of 8th note section going on. So that riff is very interesting, and it conquers a number of different things. The first thing is this F sharp minor blues type of thing. Right? That's straight out of a spy movie. And then it hits right into this. So that first part, when it goes to the E, the 7th fret of the A string, that's all an A major chord. So you can think of it as an extension of the F sharp as well, but really I think we're going into an A Lydian type of deal. Then we go to this, and that is indicative of a B7, because you have the D sharp, which is the major 3rd, and then the B and A, which is the root and flat 7. So what I'm seeing here is an extension of that F sharp Dorian idea that we have. So the F sharp Dorian scale uses all of these notes: F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, okay, and E. So all of those notes exist within the Dorian scale, except for the C, but that's a bluesy type thing, right? That's where the blues comes in. So we have F sharp minor, A, B, then we do this F, E, F sharp. So you're going F to E to F sharp. That's incredibly strange, but another example of those disjointed intervals that, say, Metallica or Megadeth might use. Now this F, I'm going to theorize, just like it was in the chorus, is a flat 2 to the E, and then going to the E. It actually resolves, and then we just come back into the original key, like nothing happened. Okay, so moving on to verse 2. Now this is the first clean guitar feature of the entire song, and it's characterized by this lush, wide reverb with a long decay, and the open B string ringing out through each of the chords. Okay, so we're going to go over exactly what's happening there and why the B and E string are significant over each chord. So the other defining characteristic of this verse is the low F sharp pedal point that John Myung is playing on the bass, right? It's just an F sharp on the bottom of everything, laying down the bed. This indicates that we are in an F sharp Dorian mode because of all the notes that exist. The F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, and D sharp, and the E are all characteristic of this mode. And because there's an F sharp on the bottom, it's pretty obvious that that's what's happening. Now, I'm going to make an argument here that there's 3 chords happening during this part. And I'll show you what I mean. So the first chord is this. F sharp 11, or minor 11. So we have an F sharp and an A on the bottom, and the B and the E on the top. So in the context of F sharp minor, F sharp, A, which is the minor third, the B is the 11, and the E is the flat 7. So coming up to the next chord, we have this. Now I'm going to say this is a type of B chord, very similar to No Excuses by Alice in Chains. So here it is. So if we're calling it a B chord, and it's all over an F sharp, but because we have a B chord, we have a B, D sharp, which is the major third. That's the Dorian note. It's the flat 6 of the F sharp, which gives it that sound. And in this case, if we're looking at it in the context of B major, it's root, major third, root, is the B string, and then an added 11th on the top. So a B add 11. 2 11th chords in a row. The next chord is a C sharp, an E, a B, and an E. Now I'm going to say this is kind of a, you can either call this a C sharp minor 7, with the root being C sharp, E minor third, the B is the flat 7, and the E is the flatted third. You can also say it's an A add 9 with no A in it. Now that's interesting. Why would you say that, Mike? Well, after listening to years and years of progressive rock throughout the, well, years and the decades, especially during the 70s, I would see stuff like this. With the B chord going to the A chord, right? Stuff like this. That's the 5 chord going to the 4 chord back and forth. Now that's what I see, and that's kind of what I hear happening during this verse, even though it's all over an F sharp. But that's the cool thing about having a pedal tone, is that you could go pretty much hog wild over the top and change the function as you wish. The next chord is a B. This is a B11 again, but inverted this time. We have the D sharp on the bottom, which is the major third, the 5th, the F sharp, the root, and the 11th, the added 11th. Next we have this. We're coming back into that C sharp minor 7 and or A add 9. We go back up to the B again, the B add 11. That's why I'm arguing for the A chord, because it goes from A to B, right? And then we have this. This is like a B7, I would say, with an added 11th as well, because you have the D sharp, you have the A, which is the flat 7, the B, which is the root, added 11th again, and then we move up here to another B add 11 type of scenario. So this arguably might be the most annoying pre-chorus of all time. It's based around really 3 separate simple chords, all right? A to B and F sharp major, right? So we have the 3, a major 4, and then a major 1. So that's kind of a modulation right there. And we're modulating to get back into C sharp for the chorus. So here's how it actually goes. So, in my not so humble opinion, this it seems a little unnecessary to play this section like this, but we're going to analyze it anyway. So we start off playing the A, and then we stop it. We go up to this high E and a B. This signifies the 5th and the 9th of the chord. So you can think of this as like an A add 9 with this, which is a sharp 11, the D sharp, and then to the root. So it's A Lydian. That's the general sound of this, okay? A Lydian. And then we move to this, with a depressed bar starting on the root note, B, up to the octave, double octave B, to a G sharp. So we're sort of doing a big suspension here. The G sharp is the 6th, the E is the sus4, and the D sharp is the major 3rd. Okay, so A chord, B chord. Now we do this. A flat 7 to the root on the F sharp. The open E and B once again, now in the context of F sharp, just like we saw before, and in other sections of images and words. The E is the flat 7, and the B is the added 11th. So, F sharp 7, add 11. We hit this, depressed bar, and coming into the A sharp, which is the major 3rd. The F sharp to the flat 7, so that's root, flat 7, just like you did on the bass, but it's the other way around. Then we do the reverse once again. 11, major 3rd, root, flat 7, 5. And that brings us into the second chorus, which is exactly the same, except for the fact that the tag with the crazy chromatic scale tornadoes at the end, that goes twice. And then into the instrumental section. So I'm just going to play that for you real quick. And in slow motion. One more time. That was real stupid. That's why we play these notes fast, because when you play them slow, they sound dumb. The pre-solo section consists of 3 different parts, so I'm going to break those up into those 3 sections right now. So the first thing that needs to be said about this is that it is an 11/4 timing, okay? Now you can break it up into a measure of 3, a measure of 5, and a measure of 3 to maybe make it easier to count, but it is 11 beats for the entire part. So let's take a look at what's going on here. So we start off with 2 quarter notes on the downbeats, on power chords, and then we switch to single notes, up, down, 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 ba-da-bum. So the accents that we're playing on are beats 1 and 2, beats 4 and 7, and then 9, 10, 11. Those are all downbeat heavy parts. The rest are syncopated upbeats. So those first 2 chords, 1, 2, and 4, and 7, 9, 10, ba-da-da-bum. Okay, and that triplet at the end is on the 11th beat. Now, like I said before, you can split this up into 3, 5, and 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. And that might complicate it a little bit too much, but the key is to just feel out where the downbeats are and where the syncopated notes are. Now, functionally speaking, all that's happening here is we're playing the do and the sol, or the 1 and the 5 of the F sharp chord. So this is a Dorian mode as shown by Kevin Moore playing the keyboard part on top. He's foreshadowing the next section that we're about to play right now. Here's what we're working with. We're doing this sort of Dorian sound because we're playing around with the C sharp, the D sharp, and the E. So it's almost like your classic rock and roll, hot cross buns, Chuck Berry type of thing, right? We're doing right between those 3 notes, except we're playing it like this. So we're playing those same notes that you would hear in all the rock and roll classics, but mangling it up and putting it into 11/4. So finger-wise, you want to make sure you're using the optimal positioning. So you need to use your pinky on the 4th fret, your pointer on the 1st and 2nd fret of the D string, because you're going to need your middle finger to drop down to the low E to get those low notes. So check this out. Slide the pointer. You see? You want that middle finger to be available on the low E string, so you slide the pointer finger up and down on the D string so you can get all those notes and make it sound just peachy keen. Here's the last part. So if it wasn't obvious already, we are within a Dorian mode because we have the minor 3rd on the top and we have the major 6th in play as well. So here we're using perfect 4ths to move up and down. And then we hit a B and an F sharp. Right in. B, F sharp. So here's the entire pre-solo section without any interruptions. And from there we head on into the guitar solo. Before diving into quite possibly, in my opinion, the greatest guitar solo of all time, or one of the greatest guitar solos of all time, let's take a look at what the rhythm section, Kevin Moore and John Myung, are doing underneath. So from what you just saw before, I haphazardly put together a Kevin Moore and John Myung type of rhythm track. I'm just going to kind of describe what's going on here. So chord-wise, we're starting off with an F sharp minor 7, okay? And which then goes to an F sharp minor 6. Okay, so this indicates that we are in an F sharp Dorian mode, which we've basically been in for the entire song. The next chord is an E add 9, with John Myung outlining the 9th going to the root. And John Petrucci kind of outlines this as a Lydian type of mode. With that add 9, you can add the major 7, the 9, and the sharp 11 on top. And the 13th as well if you wish. If you're going up through all of the extensions, so that makes sense. The next chord is C sharp minor, with that bass line and all the stops too. So that's a C sharp minor, a Dorian, right? With that natural 6 in there. Coming in next is the B. And then A, B. And then it just comes right down the B major scale to come back to the beginning of the chord progression. Alright, now that B to A type of thing, it creates a very interesting color palette underneath the solo. It's almost bimodal in a way. Two modes kind of going on at the same time, Lydian modes. So since the solo is so long-winded and very fast, I'm going to take it through each section. Regular speed, I'll talk about it for a little bit, and then I'll do a slow-mo version right after that. So all of that goes on top of the F sharp minor 7 and minor 6 chord. Now what's happening here is we're starting with a double stop at the 12th fret bent. So you're basically bending the B string into the 5th of the chord while keeping the static E on top for the minor 7. Now for this drop down, we're going C sharp, B, F sharp, which is the root, G sharp, the 9, to the E, which is the flat 7. So all of that comports to the F sharp Dorian scale. And especially this part too. So this actually reminds me of a C sharp minor thing. But it's actually in the key of F sharp. Now you can do that. You can play different scales on top of chords that aren't named the same thing and still make it work. So in this case, a C sharp minor scale would actually equal the F sharp Dorian scale. So keep that in mind when you're trying to create a solo. So we're going with that long run, starting on the natural 6th of the F sharp chord. Right? Going down to the C sharp minor pentatonic type of thing, but then we're ending on the D sharp with a nice vibrato and a little pinch if you can get that out. That's the natural 6th of the F sharp minor. So that's strictly Dorian. Now, the next part's like this. That arpeggio is repeated all the way down. So it's just a sequence of this. D sharp, E, G sharp, B. So if you take those 4 notes, it's outlining this sort of F sharp minor 11 type of thing, or an E major 7 arpeggio starting on D sharp. If you remember before, during the introduction of the song, when those guitar harmonies came in, one of the harmonies was outlining a D sharp on top of the E chord. So it was an E major 7. So that's allowed in this sort of fusion type of world. The E major 7 over the F sharp is what I'd like to call a big suspension chord, because you have the E flat 7, the 9, the B, which is the sus4, right? So that's like a big sus chord, and then this, the D sharp, which can then be resolved down to the 5th. So here's that first part slow. The next part happens over the E chord like this. So it's kind of funny isolating these parts, because that last part's really spastic. It starts spastic and it ends spastic. Let's take a look at what's going on though. So we have the open E string, which is the root, and this harmonic sequence, right? The 5th, 4th, and 3rd fret. Oh, not that one. The 5th, 4th, and 3rd fret harmonics actually outline the E major arpeggio, 1, 3, 5, E, G sharp, and B. So it's perfect. And then we have this series of pull-offs and hammer-ons. So basically all that's happening here is we're outlining the root, 9th, and the 3rd, or the root, 2nd, and 3rd, with the E, F sharp, G. E, F sharp, going down to the 5th, the open B string, and then F sharp, G sharp, to the same open B string. Now that open B is constant throughout the chord. It's the 5th bed. And then we have this. So that's going up to the C sharp. So you're actually bending up to the 6th. And then we bend into the sharp 11, but then resolve it up to the 5th immediately. So you have that A sharp going into the B. And then you're kind of coming down this almost E major pentatonic type of thing, but with that alteration, down to the octave of the sharp 11. And then we end off with this very spastic, crazy sextuplet run starting on the G sharp, 9th fret of the B string. So you're going 9, 11, 12, 9, 11, 12. And then you take that down, switch the pattern, and end on that low B. So it's just an E Lydian scale going up, just like that. And then that resolves into the C sharp minor. So this might possibly be the most straightforward lick in the entire solo, but it's kind of cool the way that it's phrased. So let's check it out. So we're going root, 5th, and octave in this first part. Just real simple in 8th notes. Then we dip back down to the root, and we go like this. So that's kind of like a Chuck Berry type of thing as well. And that's at the 11th and 12th fret of the B and E strings, respectively. Now what you're doing there is you're hitting the A sharp and the E, which is a tritone interval. But on top of a C sharp, that's the natural 6th and the minor 3rd. So that works perfectly with a Dorian mode. So this is C sharp Dorian. Now we're going like this, blues mode, with that flat 5 to 5, and then this minor 7, C sharp minor 7 type of thing. Then this. So that's the root, flat 7, 4, flat 5, and then down the blues scale. Total blues. Don't get it twisted with anything else. And then we do this root 5th octave again. And then you bend the 12th fret up to a C sharp, a whole step, which is the root, so that works perfectly. And then you do this. That's almost like a Jimi Hendrix type of lick. We're getting some taste coming in here. It's not just all shred all the time. There's some tastiness happening, all right? The next section happens on the first B chord of the entire progression. Now this is a little interesting and I'll show you why. So you're going up this, it's almost like a D major type of chord up at the 11th and 12th fret, right? So you have 5, 1, 5 and up to the octave of the 5th. And you're hitting the sharp 4 at the top. Okay? Sharp 4. That indicates a Lydian mode. If you notice what I said before, this is kind of like a bimodal thing because it goes to an A chord in between. That F natural to the B does not belong anywhere in the A chord whatsoever. But since you're playing over a B chord inherently, you're creating another Lydian mode on top of the A. So when you play a B chord on top of an A, you create the Lydian sound with that sharp 4 in the D sharp. And we keep on going here. And that's just a sweep. Now a lot of people are probably curious about that part. That's just a B major arpeggio going down. Just raking down the strings really quickly. You start off on the 19th fret of the high E, and then from the 14th fret of the high E, which is the F sharp, you just come down 14, 16, 16, 16, and then 14 on the A string. And then we sneak in this little B add 9 arpeggio. Now that's sneaky. That's incredibly sneaky. This part, all that is just a B major scale starting on an A sharp. That's all it is. Now, the A sharp, right? That's the whole thing that I'm trying to talk about here. You can't have an A sharp and an A together, but they managed to do it. They managed to sneak an A chord in when Petrucci is obviously breaking the rules and using an A sharp which is a flat 2 above. Now this is not anywhere near the Phrygian mode. That was earlier in the song. Here we're dealing with strictly Lydian, but this is like a super hyper Lydian from outer space. I don't know what the hell it is. Here we are in slow motion. Now the next bend indicates the recycling of that chord progression. So we're actually bending up on this B to a C sharp. So we're back on the F sharp, so that C sharp's the 5th. We're all good. Now here we're going. Now that's super jazzy because this is an E and a B. So that's a flat 7 and 11th, okay? So that's like an E power chord on top of an F sharp. And then we're sliding down to this, which is a C sharp to a G sharp, a C sharp power chord. Now, that's the 5th and the 9th. That makes a little more sense in context with the chord, but when you mix it with this, it just sounds really modern. That's about all I'm going to say about that. And then we hit this. So that's just straight up pentatonic madness, right? Straight up pentatonic madness. This is like a recalling of Metropolis Part 1. A lot of chromaticism going on there. Your flat 7, 6, 5. Blues. More blues. From the root to the flat 7. Blues. And then major 3rd at the bottom. Now the funny part about that major 3rd is that we're playing a minor chord. This next lick has a very wide E Lydian sound. We're going all the way from the open E all the way up to really the 19th fret of the high E string. So we're covering this much range. So check it out. So we're combining a lot of different techniques there. Hammer-ons, pull-offs, finger tapping, the works. And we're starting off with this open E add 9, E, B, F sharp, resolving to the major 3rd. Okay, so stacked 5ths resolving to the actual chord. Then we hit the B on the 4th fret of the G. And then we bend the 5th fret of the B string, which goes from E to F sharp, which is a 2-to-1 resolution. And then we're tapping the 12th fret of the B string and bending it at the same time so that this 12th fret becomes the 14th fret, or a C sharp. So we're doing a double resolution here. E to F sharp, which is 1 to 2 to 1, and then B to C sharp, which is 5 to 6. Okay? That's pretty common in almost all forms of music. And then we go like this. So you're tapping at the 12th fret and bending at the 7th at the exact same time. So, and then you're pulling off to the 6th fret of the E string. Now that's a sharp 11. That's a Lydian mode indication. Okay? An A sharp on a B chord, bam, that's Lydian. And then you're going. So you're resolving up to the 5th or the 7th fret and then hitting the open B and E strings. Now the open B and E strings work because, very simply put, we're in an E chord. Always remember the chord you're on, and then this stuff doesn't seem so crazy. But this part is crazy, objectively. So we're starting with this sweep pick. Right? Now this is a big stretchy sweep pick. So we're going all the way from the 18th fret on the D string, 16th fret on the G, 14th fret on the B, and the 12th fret of the E for this annoying arpeggio. It's like a slot machine that hasn't been calibrated properly. So basically what we're doing here is we have a G sharp which is the third, a B, which is the fifth, a C sharp, which is the sixth, and an E, which is the root. So this is like a major sixth arpeggio. This reminds me of what those old school jazz heads would play with those crazy stretch chords that it doesn't even sound like it's hard. But this sounds like it's difficult. Now we're doing that. Now on the way back up, we're going to do this. We're doing almost a whole tone thing going from E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, 12, 14, 16, 18. 2 frets at a time. Whole steps. All whole steps. Now when you do whole steps like that, it starts to sound like a dream sequence almost. Right? A little augmented sounding. But it's indicative of the Lydian mode once again. Because we're going E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp. 1, 2, 3, sharp 4. And then we're doing this little tappy thing where we're going all the way up to the 21st fret, which is a C sharp. That's another sixth. That's a sixth up the octave. Okay, so we have this big E major sixth with a sharp 11 arpeggio tapping and legato hammering on and pulling off. It's just getting insane. So let me attempt to play that slow for you. So I hate to sound like an overbearing gym teacher, but we have 2 more sections left. Just 2 more. Climb the rope to the top of the ceiling and a dwarf is going to come out of the tile and cut the thing so you fall to your death. So all of those notes occur over the C sharp Dorian scale, right? Which I've been talking about for a long time throughout the course of this tutorial, right? The Dorian scale has the natural 6th scale degree. So we start off with a bend at the 14th fret of the B string, which are bending up to the 9th scale degree of the C sharp minor chord. Alright, and then you're slowly bending back down, and then as soon as you finish that, you go with that sort of almost karate choppy type of thing on the 11th fret of the B string. So basically what you have to do is you need to hit the 14th fret of the B and then pull off and then just hit the whammy bar like that. So moving away from that, we have a series of pull-offs, moving into another series of pull-offs that include ascending arpeggios. So let's take a look at the first set of pull-offs. So that's the first thing. So we're going from the 12th and the 11th fret of the B string, which is the flat 7 and the natural 6, going to the 5th of the chord, which is on the 13th fret of the G string, okay? And then we're going to do this. That is the 14th to the 11th fret, which is the root to the natural 6. So back to the 5th, and then we're going like this. Now that's like a B sus4 type of thing, because you have the E, D sharp, and B as your operative notes. Now immediately coming out of that, we need to hit this fast ascending arpeggio line. So we're going B major, C sharp minor, D sharp minor, E major, and then bending at the 19th fret of the high E string to get up to the root note. The last section just requires some bendy bends in a B major pentatonic style, also including some more karate chops type stuff like that, and a huge chromatic scale that ascends and descends all the way into the pits of John Petrucci's bowels. So let's just take a real quick look at that. We start on the 14th fret of the high E string, bend up a whole step, come back down, pull off to the 11th fret. Now that's 5, 6, 5, 3 in terms of chord relations. And then we do this. So basically what you're doing there is you're hitting the 14th fret of the B string, which is actually the 9th of the chord. So you're on the C sharp, and you're bending and then karate chopping at the same time to get that type of sound, right? And then you hammer on and pull off from the 12th to the 14th into the root note. So it's pretty simple theoretically. Now this last part, you start on A sharp, and you do this massive chromatic type run, because not everything is totally chromatic here. But you are moving chromatically up the G string like that, and then you're actually going up a whole step. Going up to the 19th fret, until you finally hit the 19th fret of the high E string, which is the root, and then you come all the way down, back to the original note that you went to, which is the A sharp, 15th fret of the G, and then we come back up to the 18th fret and a descend, and then until we finally reach that C sharp. And let's not forget this. Now the rhythm to the keyboard solo is harmonically a little bit complex. Even though the chords themselves that the guitar is playing is simple, it morphs, it changes, and the bass line underneath also dictates how everything sounds. So harmonically speaking, we have a couple different things happening here. So the guitar is really going like this. C sharp, sus2, D sharp, sus2, so up to the 2 chord, F sharp, sus2, the 4, E sus2, which is the flat 3. So we're dealing within the key of C sharp minor, and it's actually a Dorian because that D sharp sus2 includes the natural 6th of the scale. Now, let's take a look at what the bass line is doing here. It's just staying on the same note through all 4 of the chords. So really the chords would be like this. C sharp sus2, D sharp sus2 over C sharp, F sharp sus2 over C sharp, and then E sus2 over C sharp. Now that E sus2 over C sharp is actually would create a C sharp minor 11th chord. So you get some really cool different permutations of these ideas. You get some very exotic flavors coming out of just keeping the bass line static on that single pedal point. So real quick, let's gloss over the rhythm of this. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So coming in on the next part, we're actually holding it like this. 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the only thing really going on there with the guitar is that it's stopping it on the 7th beat of each measure to give it a breath in between the chord transitions. Same exact chords, same exact shapes, same exact positions. Now the first time around that, John Myung is just playing a static C sharp underneath everything. The second time, he's playing a C sharp on the first 2 chords, so the C sharp sus2, D sharp sus2, and then he switches to G sharp on the F sharp sus2. And then the same thing happens for the E sus2. So it's really C sharp sus2, D sharp sus2 over C sharp, and then F sharp sus2 over G sharp to E sus2 over G sharp. So it's creating a lot of tension in between all the chords there. Now the last time John Myung decides to play along with the Petrucci guitar. So he goes up with the roots, C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, E. Now we end it with this, and this is just a bunch of 16th note syncopation, so take a look at the tab and it'll tell you everything you need to know. Chorus 3 of Under a Glass Moon, much like a lot of other Dream Theater songs, is slightly different than the first two. So let's check out what's going on there. So it starts off exactly the same, like this. 2, 3. Now here's the change. You go to a B add 9 at the end of that measure. Okay? So instead of going and doing this, you're replacing that with, so it's just a B add 9 that fills up the rest of the space. And the second half goes like this. Alright, so basically all that's happening there is you're just doing a slightly mutated version of this. It's a simpler version, just going from the perfect fourth to the perfect fifth. Then you're going to E5, F sharp 5, and then you're grabbing a low B right before you do this. That's all quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, on a sus4, or we can call it an add 11 because we have the major third in there as well, on B. So it's the same chord progression, and we're going to G and F with the open E and B strings on the top. So the open E and B strings are at play again. If you remember, back at the second verse, we had the open B and E string going through all those chords in the key of F sharp. Now this time, we have G major with a B and an E on top. Now the B is the major third and the E is the major sixth, so it's actually a G6 chord. And for the F, the B is a sharp 11 and the E is a major 7. So this is actually the final chord of Rhiannon by Fleetwood Mac. Little nugget there. So there's one more slight variation in the chorus we have to go over, and then everything else is pretty much exactly the same. So we're going like this. The rhythm here. So on that B add 9 the second time around you go. So you're basically just adding a 16th note type of into there, and just to give it a little more character, or just to be annoying to anybody trying to learn it. Yeah. So we're not out of the woods yet. We have one last section to do in Under a Glass Moon, and then we're finished. So we're basically wrapping up this whole thing. We're bookending it by playing the intro, but more as a chord melody. So the if you remember from way back at the beginning, the chords are F sharp, E, and D. We're doing different versions of that here. So we're starting off like this. That's an F sharp 5 with a sus2, going to the E chord, sus2, to D5, so the F sharp chord is just played on the 4th fret of the A and the D string and the 6th of the G and 7th of the B. So you get C sharp, F sharp, C sharp, F sharp. So it's actually like a 4th type of power chord, where you have a 4th here and then a 4th up the octave. Same 2 notes. Then you hit the G sharp at the top, a la chord melody. So we're almost doing like a jazzy approach to this. And then we hit down to this. That's the same exact type of chord, moved down a whole step, but now it's on E. And then we hit the sus2, arpeggiate it, into the D, same deal. But then here, you slide your ring finger up to the F sharp on the 7th fret, come down 5, 3, so Mi, Re, Do, and then harken back to the intro, tritone, tritone, E, F sharp. So that's the end of the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed Under a Glass Moon by Dream Theater, by me, Mike Roman. Please visit my website, visit my Subscribestar, and support the channel. Try to support this kind of stuff. This takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, and I'm giving you a lot of notes. You know what I'm saying? I'm giving you a lot of notes. And if you're viewing it for free, that's okay. However, I'm not saying, but I'm going to say this. I think you should support the channel. Now that's just my personal bias. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching the video. I'll see you on the next episode, which is the final episode of this series. And we're going to tackle the 11-minute monster called Learning to Live.